In this tutorial, we'll examine how to set up a MIDI controller so that you can get hands-on control of live. MIDI controllers really bring the program to life and enable the DJ to come out from behind the laptop and start performing to a crowd. They're also a lot of fun to use and very easy to set up. There are many MIDI controllers available to choose from. For more information on some of the better products for use with live, see the DJ hardware recommendations document, which is included in the Ableton DJ Course download. In my case, for this tutorial, I've got a Korg Nano control, which connects to the computer through a USB cable. Make sure that it's plugged in and turned on before you start up live. Then go to Preferences and open up the MIDI Sync tab. Live supports a number of controllers natively, and if possible, you can select yours by clicking on the Control Surface column and choosing from the list. Then, in the two columns to the right, choose the controller's MIDI input and output ports. Finally, depending on your controller, you may have to use the preset dump button to complete the setup with your controller. In my case, the Korg Nano control isn't included on the list, so I need to look in the list of MIDI ports instead. It has showed up as a USB audio device, and to enable it, I need to press Remote. If you have a controller with motorised faders or status LEDs, then you'll have to turn Track On as well, so that Live will update the controller. Finally, for most users, it's best to set Takeover Mode to value scaling. This avoids unexpected jumps occurring when you switch between changing values with a mouse to changing them with the MIDI controller. Now let's shut Preferences and click on the MIDI button in the top right of the screen to enter MIDI map mode. The keyboard shortcut is Control or Command M. All of the functions that can now be controlled have become highlighted in blue. To assign a clip, click on it and then press a key or button on your MIDI controller. So I'm going to assign this clip to the first button on my controller and this clip to the second. If you make a mistake, simply click on the clip again and assign it to the note you do want. All of the MIDI mappings are available to see and manage in the mapping browser, which can be opened through the bottom icon in the browser section whenever the MIDI or key buttons are pressed. Click on an entry to edit it, or press backspace to delete them. Knobs and sliders can be assigned in a similar way. I'd like to set up this auto filter to use on track 1. Firstly, I'm going to assign the on-off switch to a button so that I can easily turn the effect on or off. Next, I will click on the resonance control, which is marked Q, and move a slider on my controller. Finally, I'll click on the filter cutoff and twist a knob. Click on MIDI to exit MIDI map mode, and now the whole set can be triggered from my MIDI controller, just as if you'd clicked it with your mouse. So let's hear it. You can see how easy it is to trigger clips and how effortlessly effects can be introduced into your set. In fact, the vast majority of live can now be controlled with a MIDI controller, if you so choose. If you don't have a MIDI controller, you can still take advantage of getting more hands-on control whilst playing, simply by using your current computer keyboard. Remember though that this is only suitable for buttons and can't be used for controls that need knobs or sliders. To enter key map mode, press the key button, or use the keyboard shortcut Control or Command K. All of the possible keyboard controls are now highlighted in orange. Select the clip that you want to control, and then press the computer key that you want to assign it to. There are even effects which you can use simply with your computer keyboard. For example, I'm going to assign each of the EQ kills on this EQ3 to a different key on my keyboard so that I can cut the EQ easily. To exit key map mode, press key again, and now the clips are ready to be launched. are times when using a MIDI controller with Live that you only want it to affect a select range of values so that you can make more accurate changes. For example, I'm going to use a slider to control Live's tempo. I'll now set the tempo range on the MIDI browser to vary from 20 BPM up to 150 BPM. I can now use the slider to do a dramatic slowdown and then build it back up at the end of the break to the speed it was before. Now that you've seen what you can do with MIDI map and key map mode within Live, you need to decide which controls you want to assign to your MIDI controller. There's no right or wrong way of doing this, and every Live user will set it up slightly differently. If you want to do everything within Live, then you may want to try and replicate the controls that you would have on a standard DJ mixer. For example, you might want to use an EQ3 on each track and assign a volume slider for each and a slider for the crossfader. If you're a DJ who still chooses to use your DJ mixer, then you won't need any of these controls and you can simply concentrate on finding effects that you want to use with your set. Before we finish this tutorial, there's a couple more useful things to mention. A useful hands-on keyboard shortcut to remember is the F1 to F8 keys. These activate and deactivate tracks 1 to 8 and are a helpful alternative way of muting or playing each track. One thing to avoid doing is make sure that you don't disconnect your MIDI controller while you're playing your set, otherwise you'll have to restart Live before you can use it again. Finally, you may find that when you press a button on your MIDI controller, they will either toggle the button on or off, or just turn it on momentarily. If your controller's not doing what you want it to, you need to adjust it using the controller's settings and software. This can't be changed within Live. This is the end of the tutorial on hands-on control. You should now be able to control Live much more easily without having to use the mouse all the time.